After seeing John kissing my roommate, I decisively broke up with him. His friends all bet on how long it would take for me to cry and beg for reconciliation. Even John casually placed a bet. I bet she won't last more than a month. The next day, John showed up ostentatiously with my roommate by his side. Little did he know, I had truly moved on from him. For a whole 3 months, I never reached out to him once. When we met again, his brother and I officially announced our relationship. John was completely taken aback. Chapter 1. Club Dinner Notice. As soon as I pushed open the private room door, I saw a glaring scene. John was holding my roommate, Linda, and proudly announcing something with a smile. "John, who is this?" John smirked lazily. "My girlfriend." "Then, what about Elaine?" Only when someone mentioned me did I finally push the door all the way open. All eyes instantly fell on me. John met my gaze calmly, raising an eyebrow slightly. "What does it matter to her? Right now, my official girlfriend is Linda." Less than 24 hours had passed since John and I broke up. Linda blushed appropriately and shyly hid behind John. Almost tangible, sympathetic glances were directed towards me, almost piercing me with their intensity. I didn't know John would be here. "Elaine, why don't you sit down? Are you upset because I'm here?" Linda added fuel to the fire, hitting a nerve with John. He looked at me with interest. "If you can't stand it, you can leave." The club president tried to mediate, but I stopped him. I nodded, tightly holding onto the hand hidden in my pocket, just enough to maintain my composure. I indeed have no reason to stay any longer. It's too chaotic. Ignoring the gazes of everyone around, I turned and left through the door. But just a few steps outside, John caught up with me. He looked at me with amusement, a smirk on his face. "Jealous?" I didn't answer, just struggled to break free from his grip on my hand. John pressed me against the wall. His fingertips grazed my eyelids. "Are you almost in tears from feeling so uncomfortable?" I finally found an opening and struggled out. Looking past his shoulder, I saw Linda, who looked pale behind him. "Keep your boyfriend in check, don't let him go around disgusting others." Chapter 2. This time John didn't come after me. About 5 minutes after I walked out, I remembered I hadn't taken my bag yet. I had to go back again. Laughter echoed from the private room. "Just by looking at Elaine's expression, it doesn't seem like she doesn't like you anymore, so why did you break up?" I halted in my tracks. John smirked meaninglessly. "She was just being difficult." His friends kept teasing. "I'm sure she'll get back with John, wanna bet?" I bet 1 week. I bet 2 months. John's nonchalant tone was particularly clear at that moment. "I bet she won't last more than a month." I was pinned in place, like an item up for auction. My hands felt weak, unable to push open that door. The next moment, a mocking voice sounded in my ear. "Coward." As I turned around, the guy behind me pushed open the door. It was Marcus. Also John's best friend. "Marcus, why are you here so late?" He ignored everyone, picked up my bag. Before I could even process what was happening, he took my hand and led me out of the scene. Chapter 3. Thank you. I rarely spoke so politely to Marcus. Since I got together with John, he always seemed to have a subtle animosity towards me. This was the first time he had helped me so unusually. "Did you break up?" He glanced at me. It was only then that I realized he was still holding my hand. I immediately awkwardly pulled away, then nodded. John's call came in at that moment. "Where did you go with Marcus?" John had always been nonchalant. It was rare to hear such a dark tone from him. "It's late, you're not going back to the dorm, what are you planning to do with a guy at this hour, huh?" The frustration of the night erupted at this moment. Without thinking, I blurted out. "Whatever you and Linda are up to, that's what Marcus and I are up to." After saying that, I hung up the phone, avoiding hearing his sarcasm. The eerie silence forcibly dragged me back, making me face the reality I had to confront. The guy lazily leaned against the wall, his eyes drooping as he looked at me. His tone was casual. "What did you say we were going to do?" Suddenly, I had an urge to bury my head in the ground. This was more embarrassing than hearing about John's bet. Marcus seemed oblivious to my numbness. He raised his eyes, motioning behind me. "A 6-star, a themed one. Which one do you prefer?" There was a hint of a smile in his tone. "Do you like the more formal one, or the more immersive one?" I closed my eyes, feeling desolate. I forced myself to change the subject with a stiff upper lip. I'll treat you to dinner? Thank you for helping me out." With a slight chuckle, Marcus finally accepted my peace offering. Chapter 4. But in the end, we didn't go for dinner. Midway, I dragged Marcus into a bar. "Are you planning to get that jerk drunk?" Marcus leaned against the counter, almost smiling. I shook my head. "Just felt like there were too many awkward things tonight, so let's numb ourselves with alcohol." Saying that, I chugged down a big gulp of beer. I was probably getting a bit tipsy. I foolishly forced Marcus to drink with me. He ended up having a higher alcohol tolerance than me. Alcohol really can lower a person's psychological defenses. In the early hours of the street, I tugged at Marcus's sleeve, pointing to the pink sign across the street. On it were written the two big characters, "Theme." What kind of themes do they have? Was it the Doraemon exhibition I saw in Japan 2 years ago? Or perhaps Barbie's Glitter Crisis theme park? The sparkling kind. After pondering for a few seconds, I politely asked, "Could you take me to experience it?" Before I could finish my sentence, my hand was grabbed. Marcus toyed with my palm, his tone probing. "Are you pretending to be drunk?" I shook my head. "I'm serious. I never knew that I became more coherent when drunk, which was a strange flaw." "Marcus, please take me there." The guy gazed heavily at me. After a moment, he approached me, his eyes deep. "What if you deny it tomorrow?" Marcus was too stingy. Was he afraid I wouldn't pay for the exhibition ticket? Unfortunately, my phone was turned off now, so I couldn't transfer money. I could only promise solemnly, I absolutely won't deny it." He seemed to be recording. Then he put away his phone and took a step closer to me. His hand caressed my cheek. His voice husky. "Do you reject it?" Instinctively, I leaned in. The warm and dry palm. I felt so comfortable that I involuntarily squinted. "I like it." Marcus's last line of defense collapsed. He held my hand. Interlocked fingers, we walked in. The receptionist at the front desk was hesitant. We're not prepared. Do you need any?" I was a bit puzzled, huh? Marcus paused, not turning back. He lightly pinched my knuckles, his voice huskier. "Let it come up." Chapter 5. In some ways, this was quite similar to a roller coaster experience. I sat in the seat, feeling the speed fluctuating between fast and slow. At times, the track was a bit bumpy, causing me to grab onto anything around me for support. Occasionally, I would even recall examples from the language textbooks I had studied. For example, the flower bud ravaged by wind and rain, barely clinging to life. The brimming granary, family members smiling and waving. We have enough, anymore, and the granary won't be able to withstand it. Fragments overlapped and alternated in my mind. The final scene was one I had seen at my grandmother's house when I was a child. The back hill caught fire. The fierce flames were finally subdued by a sudden downpour. Marcus was like an athlete who had won first place in a track event, crossing the finish line triumphantly. He chuckled lightly, extinguished. Chapter 6. Having no memory after a hangover is the most terrifying thing in the world. Just as dawn was breaking, I fled in disarray. My phone was still turned off. As I walked downstairs to the dormitory, I saw John standing there as well. Dew clung to his shoulders, as if he had been standing there for a long time. Where did you go? His tone was flat, yet it sent shivers down my spine. I intended to walk past him. It's none of your business. John's hand holding a cigarette gripped my wrist. The flickering tip of the cigarette was inches away. Are you out of your mind, John? I've been waiting for you all night, and you didn't come back. Your phone has been off the entire time. John stepped closer. Elaine, you better not tell me that there's something between you and Marcus. The storm brewed in the eyes of the guy in front of me. It's a sign of shattered reason. I couldn't help but feel a bit frightened, continuously stepping back. Don't push me to go crazy. He suddenly laughed, chilling to the bone. I'll kill both of you. Scum. I felt absurd. You cheated, I broke up with you, and you still want to limit my interactions? It seemed like he wasn't listening to any words anymore. As he made a move forward, the dormitory manager came out to hang clothes. She happened to pull me back into the dormitory building. But we bumped into Linda at the entrance. She didn't seem like she had just come downstairs. Are you proud of yourself? Her eyes were slightly red. My mind was in chaos, and I didn't react. What? What's the point, Elaine? She continued speaking to herself. John admitted to my face that I'm his girlfriend, and he can publicly humiliate you for me. You mean nothing to him in his heart. So I suggest you don't think too much. I leaned against the wall, enduring the soreness in my waist. Casually, I replied. Like him, you mean nothing to me here either. I didn't have time to argue with her anymore. I had to take a shower immediately. Without waiting for her response, I went straight back to the dormitory. I didn't notice the malicious look she cast my way, having managed to avoid John. Just as I turned on my phone in the dorm, Marcus's call came through. I instinctively hung up. Immediately, a message popped up. Marcus? ? Trembling, I held the phone, at a loss. After 2 more seconds. Marcus, Elaine, you're good. I suddenly had a premonition that I was done for. Indeed, that night when I came out of the library, Marcus was waiting at the door. He was smoking, giving me a smirk. Elaine, come here. Settle the score. The temperature dropped abruptly tonight. But colder than the evening breeze was Marcus's voice. Chapter 7. I really don't need you to take responsibility. I took a deep breath and assured Marcus, who I had just pulled into a secluded corner. After all, it was all an accident. He scoffed coldly, slowly unbuttoning his shirt. My composure was gradually crumbling. There won't be a second time. I was a bit anxious, quietly reminding him. And this is outside. Marcus glanced at me meaninglessly. Then he pointed to the red mark on his collarbone. I said I need to take responsibility for you? Elaine, I'm here to make you take responsibility. The red mark on his collarbone was clearly visible. Marcus, feeling that I wasn't embarrassed enough, continued to pressure me. I'm a first-timer. Who isn't? Why are you so despicable? I closed my eyes, trying hard to digest the fact of being accused of being despicable by a man. Upon opening my eyes, Marcus conservatively buttoned the top button. He looked at me coldly and apologized cautiously. I'm sorry. How do you want me to take responsibility? I couldn't help but sigh. I just feel that I don't like you, and you don't like me. There's really no need to be tied together because of this. I don't know which word triggered Marcus. He stared at me without blinking. His unflinching gaze made me a bit numb before he spoke in a subdued tone. As you wish. With those 2 words, he stood up straight and walked past me. Under the night sky, the silhouette of the boy exuded a hint of loneliness. A tinge of guilt washed over me uncontrollably. Chapter 8. After that, Marcus and I returned to being strangers. Even when we crossed paths, he didn't hesitate to avert his gaze. As if nothing had ever happened. On the other hand, John began acting irrationally again. Judging by Marcus's attitude, there wasn't really anything between you two that day. He played with his lighter, lounging carelessly against the back of the chair. Elaine, he looks down on you with his high standards. Within the range of choices available to you, I am your best option. I looked at John, who shouldn't have been in this class, feeling annoyed. So what? Is that your reason to cheat without any restraint? John tossed away the lighter in his hand, somewhat impatient. Just because you kissed her, you want to break up with me? Don't you think you're overreacting? I nodded and questioned him back, following his logic. So, if we reconcile now, can I also casually kiss someone else? The next second, I heard the sound of a book slamming on the table beside me. John warned in a low voice. You can try. This was an elective class, with many students buried in their phones, paying no attention to our inconspicuous corner. John gripped my shoulder, not allowing me to escape. His gaze fell on the lower half of my face. Casually kiss someone else? Elaine, how could you be so despicable? He gripped my shoulder painfully. Before I could respond, John's actions drew the teacher's attention. What are you two doing? John gave me a stern look. Then he let go of me, throwing me back so that I hit the limestone wall with my back. Fearlessly, John stood up and smiled at the teacher. Sorry, teacher, wrong classroom. He then pushed his chair away and walked out. The disruption in that class didn't end there. After class, I realized that Linda was also in that same lecture. Due to the crowded classroom, I hadn't noticed her presence throughout the entire session. Unusually, she didn't stir up any trouble again. As she passed by me, she sneered mockingly. Elaine, being unclear with John like this. What's the difference between you and a mistress? My attention was drawn to the hand she had behind her back. Linda seemed guilty, walking faster. I still managed to see. It was just her phone. But why hide a phone? Chapter 9. I discovered Linda's motives that day while I was working a part-time job. The cat cafe where I worked recently had a new promotion. The boss asked us to stand near the entrance and distribute flyers. Coincidentally, I mistakenly handed one to Marcus. At that time, I was in a short-sleeved top and a short skirt, wearing the black and pink cat ear headband required by the store. Around my neck was a black satin choker. Sorry, I got the wrong person. I pursed my lips, considering taking back the flyer. Can't I go? Marcus's gaze shifted from the cat ears on my head to my neck, then finally took the flyer. No. Since I finished handing out the flyers, I had no choice but to lead the way with determination. I tried to minimize my presence. But Marcus didn't give me that opportunity. What kind of event is this? Can you introduce it? His emotionless face made me feel like he wasn't the type to enjoy a cat cafe. I politely smiled and began explaining. It's mainly about playing with the cats, making DIY toys for them, taking photos with the cats, and getting the pictures washed for free. You can experience it yourself first, or bring friends to do some crafts. Marcus paused at my words. He turned his head to look at me, his eyes deep and unreadable. It was confusing. But I just want to do it with you. It felt like a mushroom cloud exploded in my brain. I stared blankly at Marcus, my face quickly heating up. Marcus, in a rare move, slightly smirked, lifting his hand to lightly adjust my cat ear headband. Casually, he said. What, does your cat cafe not offer crafting services? I blinked rapidly, snapping back to reality. They do. With my head down, I walked ahead, leading the way. Today, the temperature seems unusually high. I raised my hand to my face, fanning myself to cool down. Chapter 10. Helping Marcus make a cat toy wasn't a simple task. The main challenge was that I had to constantly be mindful of the length of my skirt when bending over. Marcus quickly noticed. As he stood up to offer me his chair, he said, "Asking for trouble?" I was taken aback, following Marcus's gaze behind me. A guy was pretending to stand nonchalantly behind me, his arm almost touching the hem of my skirt. What's going on? He looked inexplicably puzzled. Clicking his tongue, he said, I didn't even touch it, it's just a bit close, right? Marcus chuckled and nodded. While he turned around to look for something, he casually replied to the guy. You're right. Before the guy could react, a thin bamboo stick used for the cat toy was right in front of his eyes. Just a bit close, right? One was terrified to the point of not daring to flinch, the other was in complete control. The difference was crystal clear. Marcus. I whispered to him. With the stick still in place, he calmly looked back at me. Let me hear what you want to say, little saint. Did he think I was going to plead for mercy for the creepy guy? I vehemently defended myself. I just wanted to say, you misplaced the stick. I grabbed his hand and slid it down the creepy guy's clothing. What are you guys up to? I only let go when I reached a certain crucial area. Satisfied, I nodded. Poke here. Marcus chuckled softly and said leisurely, all right. He casually moved it forward. Hiss. Don't. The creepy guy had a wall behind him, nowhere to escape. I'm sorry, bro, but I really didn't touch your girlfriend. Mistaken for a girlfriend. This awkward and out-of-place scene unfolded. I opened my mouth to speak but was interrupted by Marcus. Casually twirling the stick, he finally withdrew it. I know. Did you think I was just going to warn you with a few words? The creepy guy forced a couple of awkward smiles and quickly turned to leave. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief and thank him, Marcus went straight to another spot. Take it out. I followed and only then realized it was Linda, wearing a mask and a baseball cap, covering almost half of her face. Linda kept her head down without moving. Impatiently, Marcus tapped the table in front of her with his finger. Take it out yourself, or should I help you? Linda tightly held her chest, seemingly hiding something there. I'm a girl, do you want me to publicly accuse you of harassment? Marcus scoffed coldly. I don't care if you're a guy or a girl. As he was about to take action, Linda still stubbornly refused to move. In the end, I snatched it out of her arms. A cell phone. I was just filming cats, don't make a big deal out of it. Marcus pointed to the surveillance at the door, remaining calm and composed. You've been recording for at least 10 minutes. But in this direction, there are only occasional cats passing by. I looked at the phone and then at Linda, who was starting to panic. I couldn't help but think about her recent strange behavior in the dorm. Besides listening to music loudly and calling John, she was always wandering around with her phone. Most of the time, she would pass by me absent-mindedly. Realizing this, I pulled Marcus away a bit. Facing Linda alone. Either you unlock it yourself, or I'll call the police. Don't call the police. Linda, still not in a rush to unlock the phone, kept explaining. Elaine, I really don't have any other intentions. I coldly watched her stammering and trying to cover up. I just thought you were pretty, so I collected photos randomly. Unable to resist, she tremblingly unlocked her phone. I opened the photo album. Scrolling down, it was mostly pictures of me. There were ones from earlier, nearly touched by the creepy guy. There were ones of me in the dorm wearing a nightgown. She even took a photo of me wearing only a tank top without my knowledge. I'm sorry, Elaine, I'll delete them now. If you don't like me taking pictures of you, I'll delete them immediately. Ignoring Linda's apology, I went straight to the police. Chapter 11. The police officer placed a chat screenshot in front of us. John's birthday is coming up, and I plan to give him a watch, but I don't have enough money for it. The other person replied. Aren't the flowers of your department in your dorm? You can take photos of her and sell them, easy money without much effort. Linda, even though I think she looks average, I'll take your suggestion. The policewoman immediately added. Don't worry, luckily she hasn't had the chance to spread the photos yet. I didn't feel relieved. Just endless fear afterwards. Suppressing my anger with reason. I walked towards Linda step by step, raised my hand, and slapped her. Besides belittling me, you also used my photos to make money. Linda, is it fun to be double dealing? It was at this moment that John walked in. The policewoman looked young, with no hint of worldliness in her eyes. After symbolically scolding me a couple of times, she gave Linda a disapproving look and left. Caught off guard, I was pushed by John. "Are you crazy?" I almost fell but was luckily supported by Marcus in time. "John, first handle your girlfriend." He handed me the phone. "Photos are all deleted, see if there are any left." As Marcus informed John of everything that happened, I carefully checked Linda's phone again. Marcus had deleted everything neatly. I tossed the phone back to Linda. Throughout this process, she inexplicably kept staring at me. After Linda paid the fine, we left the police station together. She suddenly stopped in front of me, blocking my way. "Wait." Her gaze shifted back and forth between me and Marcus. "There's a photo in the phone of Elaine's back wearing only a tank top, not even capturing her face." It's hard for a normal person to tell it's Elaine, but Marcus immediately deleted the photo. The atmosphere subtly changed with her words. "I can't think of any other reason except that he has seen Elaine wearing this tank top before." Linda suddenly chuckled. "But I'm curious, in what situation did he see her in such close-fitting clothes?" John immediately understood, his icy gaze turning towards me. His voice was chilling, as if a ghost had crawled out of hell, making me shiver. "Explain." Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Marcus getting ready to stand in front of me again. It seemed like he always positioned himself in front of me first during moments of crisis. A thought crossed my mind. Maybe Marcus wasn't just standing up for me out of a sense of responsibility. "There's nothing to explain." This time I spoke before Marcus could. Linda suddenly realized with an "oh." "After Marcus took you away that day, you didn't return to the dorm all night, right? What happened?" John's fist was clenched tightly, making a cracking sound.
"Yeah."
My calmness made Marcus turn to look at me. "But what does that have to do with you? It seems like it doesn't concern either of you, right?" The coldness emanating from John froze the entire atmosphere. "Elaine, you're really asking for trouble." As he approached me, Marcus raised his hand to stop him. "I advise you not to be so trigger-happy." "Marcus." John growled low. "You know Elaine is my girlfriend, and you touched her. Are you still my brother?" "Girlfriend?" Marcus calmly reminded him. "It seems like she hasn't had anything to do with you for a while now." Seeing John turning his anger towards Marcus, I quickly stood in front of Marcus. "It was me, Marcus. I was drunk and forced him." The dead silence in the atmosphere. Marcus was dumbfounded. It seemed like my words had caught him off guard. Chapter 12. Before the three of us could digest the subject-object relationship in my sentence, the ride I called arrived. I took a deep breath and quickly pulled Marcus into the car. "John seems to have some mental issues, let's keep our distance from him for now." Marcus glanced at our tightly held hands. "All right." I immediately let go. "Sorry, I got you involved even though it had nothing to do with you. I had just bought that piece of clothing a couple of days ago." Marcus probably deleted it on a whim. Resting his hand on the window frame, Marcus spoke in a calm tone. "It looked similar to what you wore that day, I thought it was the same." I was forced to delve into memories. I had to respond casually. "Is that so?" "I don't remember." Marcus lacked insight. He didn't pick up on my urgent desire to change the subject and continued speaking nonchalantly. I remember all the details from that day." I looked out the window, assessing the speed of the car. I had the impulse to jump out. As if sensing my unease, Marcus glanced at me again. After all, it was my first time.
Ah.
I lit up my phone. "It's quite late now, the dorm will be closing soon. Driver, could you please hurry?" I distanced myself from Marcus while speaking, moving to the far end. Marcus lightly mocked my poor and awkward attempt at changing the subject. But thankfully, he finally let go of the issue. To thank Marcus for his gallantry that day, I decided to invite him to a cat cafe as many times as he wanted. He had the admirable virtue of not refusing. He agreed promptly. Chapter 13. Just as I arrived downstairs at the dorm, I received a call from an unknown number. Elaine. After I blocked him, John changed his number. He took a deep breath, as if trying hard to endure. I believe it was an accident caused by you drinking too much. As long as you promise not to have any contact with Marcus again. He paused, as if he had made a significant concession. I can forgive you, and I'll pretend you never mentioned breaking up. I thought John was a lunatic with no moral compass. If you can't understand simple words, just go die. I was about to hang up the phone. Elaine. Linda and I are at the hotel. As long as you say you're not willing, nothing will happen tonight. I simply responded. I wish you both happiness. I immediately hung up and added the number to my block list. Standing in place, I suddenly thought of that bet. A month had already passed. John had lost. Not only had I not contacted John proactively in this past month. My mind was filled with thoughts of another person. Marcus. The sarcastic Marcus. The deliberately unfamiliar Marcus. The lonely Marcus after being rejected. And the Marcus who kissed me after being satisfied. I think my feelings towards him are teetering on the edge of liking. But having a fondness for him doesn't mean I can use that night to tie Marcus to me. Without confirming his true intentions, I dare not easily attempt anything. I don't want to encounter a second John. Chapter 14. The cat cafe event lasted a long time. I had to wear my work uniform and cat ears every day during my shift, facing Marcus. Marcus, can you try to do it yourself? I sighed, contemplating the various facets of life. I can't keep teaching you all the time, I still need to hand out flyers and do other work. Marcus casually squeezed the cotton ball in his hand and then tossed it to me. Picking up my phone, I went to the front desk to find the boss. When I came back, he took the cotton ball back from my hand. Your boss said that whenever I come, you can put down your work to teach me. Why? I sat in a small chair, looking up at him. Marcus hooked my cat ear headband again. I got a membership card. Marcus generously loaded 10,000 into the card. The boss looked at Marcus as if he was seeing a deity. So, what's the next step? Marcus held a cat toy full of girlish charm. I didn't answer, just quietly watched him. Marcus noticed and put down the toy. What's wrong? Are you trying to pursue me? I was indeed a bit embarrassed. But I couldn't think of any indirect way to express it. Marcus casually acknowledged with an Lowering his eyes, he restrained his emotions. As if he didn't care about anything. I nervously fidgeted with my fingertips. But I said you don't need to take responsibility, you really don't need to worry about that time. Marcus picked up another small stick and began to repeat the previous steps. There was a hint of weariness in his casual tone. It has nothing to do with that time. As he applied glue, Marcus said. I already liked you. At that moment, I was especially grateful that the ears on my head were fake. Otherwise, with a cat's personality, my ears would definitely perk up and turn pink. The gentle golden light softly fell on the boy's eyelashes. His last sentence echoed in my mind. Everything around me fell silent at that moment. I heard the sound of my heart beating. Just as I was hesitating whether to agree to Marcus so quickly, a sudden unexpected event helped me make a decision. My period had been delayed for half a month already. I recalled a certain moment during that time. Marcus's breath was unsteady. It's already over, Elaine. I felt like I had drunk fake alcohol, hugging Marcus frantically. What are you talking about? The roller coaster suddenly stopped at a certain point due to a problem, and I, disregarding safety, just kept begging the operator to keep it going. Begging him not to stop my roller coaster. The operator seemed helpless too. But he couldn't resist my pleas. He just said, Elaine, you're not responsible, that's all. But after experiencing the roller coaster, I chose to run away immediately. After that, I completely forgot about it. Chapter 15. I bought a pregnancy test kit with a hint of luck. Looking at the bright red lines, a wave of dizziness rushed into my brain. My temples throbbed faintly. Unconsciously, I opened Marcus's chat interface on my phone. But I couldn't type a single word. This kind of thing should be said face to face. I touched my abdomen. I deliberately added a coat to the promotional dress at the cat cafe today, feeling lost as I waited for Marcus. But when I saw him, my words suddenly couldn't come out. I stood at the door, watching a scene not far away. An exceptionally cute girl was chatting and laughing with another boy. Marcus's face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. He walked straight to the girl, pulled her to his side, said something to the boy, and then walked away with the girl. Clearly, it was a jealous act. The girl didn't mind, happily linking arms with Marcus. The sensitization of emotions was magnified at that moment. Tears instantly welled up in my eyes. A scumbag like him should be eradicated. I sniffed, already starting to imagine myself lying on the operating table to remove the baby. What's wrong? The scumbag I had just cursed was already standing in front of me, completely unfazed, with that cute girl. Her eyes sparkled like a spring, false eyelashes flickering. Hey, why is this little girl crying? I instantly froze. That rough voice almost scared my child away. Marcus saw me petrified and directly grabbed the girl's neck in a fierce manner. If you dare to dress up as a woman again and deceive people, I'll strip you naked and throw you on the street. The next second, the black straight wig was just dangling in front of me. Mechanically, I shifted my gaze to the boy's face in front of me. Hey, did I scare you, little sister? I haven't had a chance to introduce my gender yet. He cleared his throat. I'm Marcus's roommate, a straight guy, but that doesn't stop me from being a beautiful woman. Oh, right, I remember you. Last year's campus beauty pageant, you were third, I was one place ahead of you. While I was still processing the information, the cross-dressing boss was already chased away by Marcus. What were you crying about just now? He brought up the topic again. In my mind, fantasies of Marcus proposing for the child and me getting rid of the baby alone kept alternating. In a state of confusion, I extracted the common elements from these two scenes. I'm pregnant. I blurted out to Marcus in a daze. In the end, neither of the two scenarios I had imagined actually happened. Marcus drove me to get checked. The results were inconclusive. I had encountered a faulty pregnancy test. The doctor kindly reassured me. It's okay, young lady, you're still young, there are many chances of getting pregnant. I didn't know what to say. Chapter 16. A photo of Marcus and me coming out of the obstetrics clinic was anonymously posted on the school forum. When a friend told me about it, I instinctively thought I would become the target of public scorn. But when I clicked on the post, I realized that the poster was intentionally or unintentionally guiding everyone to believe that Marcus was completely at fault. Oh, this is Marcus, is it really necessary to target him like this? People don't like him, but does that mean it's rape? Don't be too obsessed with handsome guys upstairs, just because he looks good doesn't mean he can't be a jerk. Do all girls have to like him and be chased by him? I suspect he's taking girls to forcibly abort. This post had been fermenting for hours. There was no way Marcus hadn't seen it. I knew where he had no defense. So, I registered an account with my real name and immediately reposted that post. My boyfriend accompanied me for a routine checkup. The poster intentionally led to mudslinging at my boyfriend and violated our privacy. I have reported it to the police for handling. Apart from John, no one else could have done this. Instead of arguing with him, it's better to have the police invite him for a chat. Just 2 minutes after sending the reply, I received a call from Marcus. Even though it was him calling, the one who answered in silence was also him. I let out a sigh. Marcus, why didn't you defend yourself against the mudslinging? Are you a punching bag? Marcus's tone was indifferent. The post wasn't wrong. It's not right for someone without a proper status to accompany you to the hospital for a pregnancy checkup. It's normal to be criticized. Facing his stubbornness, I felt somewhat helpless. Haven't you seen the post I made? I've thought about it, I still want to take responsibility for you. Marcus's voice still lacked emotion. Never mind, Elaine. If it's just about taking responsibility, then forget it. It's meaningless to morally pressure you like this. I was speechless for a moment. He's so melodramatic. I felt like I was coaxing a little princess. Marcus, it's because I like you that I want to take responsibility for you. Can you be happy now? After 2 seconds of silence, Marcus asked. Where are you? I told him my location, and 5 minutes later, I saw Marcus running towards me. Do you really like me? He pursed his lips tightly and asked seriously. I realized that my casual confession had only added to his uncertainty. So, I took a step forward, hugged his waist, and buried myself in his black hoodie. Sincerely and gently, I reassured him. Yes. I really like you. I only like you. I like you the most. The next moment, I was hugged back. The atmosphere gradually warmed up. But John's sudden appearance brought it back to freezing point. What about me? The lingering shadow. Feeling annoyed, I wriggled out of Marcus's embrace. John, surprisingly, didn't explode in anger, his voice was very soft. I broke up with Linda a long time ago, nothing happened between us. But Elaine, you seem to not care at all. No wonder Linda came back one day crying, not only moving out of the dorm, but also applying to change majors for the next semester with the counselor. The class monitor imitated the counselor's tone to gossip. With your number of failed subjects, I think repeating a year is more suitable for you than changing majors. I gradually came back to my senses and looked at John across from me. He stood in the wind, looking a bit frail. Even so, you clearly guessed that I was the one who posted, yet you're not willing to give me a call. His voice choked up a bit. Elaine, I don't understand why we ended up like this. So annoying. If you don't understand, just go die. I had no patience for his drama. I quickly dragged my boyfriend away from the scene. Good thing you're not sharing a room with this kind of lunatic. I whispered in relief. Chapter 17. Why did you bring me here? I dragged Marcus to the most remote little park in the school. Here, John won't be able to find us. He's a bit directionally challenged, doesn't even know there's a tiny park on campus. Marcus's eyes held a smile, his low voice particularly ambiguous at this moment. If he can't find us, then what? What do you want to do? I couldn't bear his intense gaze. I chose to throw myself into his arms again. I didn't get enough hugs earlier. Saying that, I rubbed against his hoodie again, inhaling the crisp scent. Let's hug a little longer. Marcus gently stroked the back of my head, absent-mindedly playing with my hair. His tone was languid. Just hugs? I lifted my head from his embrace. Are you thinking of kissing me? Marcus calmly nodded. I hesitated a bit. What if someone sees us? Marcus held onto my waist and turned me in a different direction. They won't. There are hardly any people passing by here. I stood on my tiptoes and kissed him. Your turn to kiss me, Marcus. He chuckled and rubbed my ear, then leaned in for a kiss. I followed his lead, accepting his kiss. The compatibility unexpectedly high. But our compatibility wasn't limited to just that. One day, Marcus and I went out for the whole day. In the evening, we passed by a newly opened themed hotel. Marcus stopped in his tracks, looking at me with hidden intentions. Wanna try something new? Holding on to curiosity and a thirst for knowledge, I followed Marcus inside. I knew it. A new round of roller coaster was about to begin.